Let's talk about money today. More specifically, how do I practice financial minimalism? What does financial minimalism mean for me? And, does it mean decluttering money? Of course not. So I have a new haircut. I'm back from Switzerland, if you haven't seen my last video. And I am wearing the same sweater. It's a new sweater from Colorful Standard that I love very much. But also, 10 days or so ago, I started my new job. And that at least has a lot to do with money and practicing financial minimalism. So I have a list of points for you that I want to talk about today when it comes to money and minimalism, or even more so just how a certain minimalist approach to money helps me live a more happy life, having enough money, but also not worry about money too much. Because my first point on this list is I want to prioritize time over money. And I think this sounds very simple, but it's actually more complicated than that. Because during the past few years, I've been self-employed, so I've been very much so in control over my time, and I thought that's the best approach to live according to this principle of valuing time over money, because I am free to decide what to do with my time. I create this content and I earn the money with it to live my life. But I realized, especially during the past year, that the money wasn't enough. So what happens? I start using my time not to create content and live my happy life, but I start using my time to worry about money and maybe do things with my content and with my self-employed business that I don't really do because I like it, but that I do more so to maximize profits and to earn more money. And in the end, it's not really valuing time over money, but I'm using all of my time to worry about money. And that is not the solution. That does not make me happy. And so a few months ago, I made the decision to actually start an additional job in social work, which is what I studied. And I think it sounds maybe counterintuitive because I am working this job and I still have my self-employed business, and therefore I'll make more money, which sounds like focusing more on money than on spending my time. But I do think right now that actually this will help me worry less about money and using my time to create content the way I want, creating the content I want. And therefore, in the end, I do hope that I kind of have more time, or that I have more quality time. And at least I have less stress and worries about money, and therefore I can use my time better and it's not dominated by money. Because what I kind of realized during these past years is that yes, you can buy time and you can buy convenience by spending money, but you have to be really careful, because sometimes when we spend all of this money for convenience, we lose important and precious aspects of life, because sometimes it really makes sense to spend the time instead of the money to do something and to achieve something. Maybe it's so much more about the journey than about the goal, and that really, I think, becomes visible with that. But on the other hand, as I just said, trying to always get the experience and not spend the money, trying to not spend the money can also make life a lot harder, because, for example, it means not taking public transport just to save these 2 or 3 euros, and instead not being able to go somewhere, or having to take the bike or go by foot. And sometimes that makes sense and sometimes it just really doesn't. And this is just one of the examples that I have that I in the past never thought about, taking public transport or not, because if it's better to take public transport, I just would. And during the past year, I did worry a lot about that. And it just shows me that a little bit of convenience that can be bought is really, really worth it sometimes, and can give back so much freedom and time again to use on other things that I think are maybe more important. But as a minimalist, apart from saying that money is not my top priority because I don't think that will make me happy, I also think it just really does make sense to limit my expenses. During the past few years, I mainly limited my expenses because I just did not have the money. So I made it possible to be a content creator, to be fully self-employed and not do anything else, because I could limit my expenses that much. But on the other hand, that does really not mean that now that I'm earning more money, that I'm just gonna spend a lot more of it as well. Because I do think that apart from making it possible to be self-employed, limiting its expenses itself does make a lot of sense. But I think there it's just really important to have a balance. Like, I'm not a part of the FIRE movement. I do not want to save just as much as possible by taking away from the present. I think it's really important to live a fulfilled life in the present, but also kind of think about the future and save money if possible. So what does that mean for me right now? I had a very inexpensive lifestyle, and I'm gonna try to keep that this way. I am gonna have a few more expenses because I am gonna take public transport more. Also, it's paid from my employer, like the public transport ticket in the city. But things like that, like these small expenses that I really did think a lot about just because I did not have any money during the past year, I am gonna spend these just because I like the convenience. I do not want to think 3 times about what I buy in the supermarket, about if I can afford, I don't know, a book that I really want to buy, or even buying something secondhand instead of waiting until I maybe can get it for free somewhere. Like, I do want to have this little bit of money that I can just spend if I need something, if it makes more sense. Also train tickets, like I do want to take the better connection and spend 20 euros more instead of having to stay somewhere overnight in a train station between, 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. just because it was a bit cheaper. I didn't do that much during the past few years, but I did definitely in the past. So I want to buy a little bit of convenience, but it really still makes a lot of sense to limit my expenses, because that gives me so much more freedom for the stuff that is actually important to me. I do invest my money, and I do save some money for expenses that are coming, because I know they will, and also for traveling, for example, and for if I want to buy a car or a house at one point in my life, or if I want to move overseas or have another big expense that I can't see coming right now. Luckily, medical expenses are not really something I'm planning or fearing, because we do have like public mandatory health insurance, and I do very much so hope that that will cover whatever comes my way when it comes to health expenses. Talking about keeping expenses low, there's also a guideline that I had for myself during the past years, which is I just want to buy one item for myself a month. Usually during the past years, I was below that one item per month, but I also got gifted stuff from brands because I am a content creator. And I also actually had another guideline for myself a few years back, which was kind of buying one big item for myself a year and not more. A big item meant like something between 500 euros and 1,000 euros or even more, because it was more so for a new camera lens, a new computer, things like that. And I still think that makes a lot of sense. And right now, all of these expenses that I just mentioned would be business expenses, so it doesn't really count. But other than that, I think the last big expense that big thing that I bought just for myself was my Wakes backpack, which did cost like 350 euros, just because I wanted to have a new backpack. And I think it's a good idea, because I don't think if I buy like 20 super expensive things a year, for one, I couldn't afford them. And then also, I don't really think they will bring me happiness. But I still do think that every now and then, it does make sense to buy something for myself, even if it's expensive. And it can even make my life a lot better. But since I don't really want to ask from my things to make me happy, I also do want that reflected in my spending. And so I do not invest like thousands of euros a year in material stuff to make me happy, because I don't think that will work out, and it's gonna be a waste of money. One big achievement and success I had with this new chapter of my life and starting a new job in social work was that I realized that for my values, I definitely did something right during the past few years, because with this part-time job, I'm able to pay all my bills. And now that has to do with how this job is paid, with me being able to study, but definitely social work is not one of the best paid jobs. But it just shows me that when I'm able to cover all of my bills with a part-time job, I did manage to keep my costs pretty low and to keep my time as a high priority because I have still a lot of freedom. And I need that freedom because I have a family and I have this social media business. And so I definitely also have other uses for my time than working in that job. But I am very happy that it worked out. And I know very, very well that many people would also need that freedom and are not able to have it because their jobs are not paid well, or because they have higher living expenses, because they have different values, or because, I don't know, they haven't managed to pare them down. And so I think this is a product from privileges, but also partly from minimalism and from cultivating habits that ensure that my costs of living do actually stay pretty low. To give you a few examples, we do not heat our apartment super high. We do try to keep the electricity bill low, and I do have like a very inexpensive phone plan, for example. But also, of course, we save a lot of food, so we don't have to pay that at the grocery store. And I also try to buy everything possible secondhand, so I just don't have the high costs. But all of these things are also sustainable, which is also a very important value of mine. So everything kind of goes hand in hand and supports my values of minimalism, sustainability, and having time for myself and the things that are important to me instead of working my ass off to pay all the bills. And as I said, it has also to do with privileges. So it's not just my success there, but my strategy right now is just to work this part-time job, make that pay my bills, have the social media business, do what's fun here, and hopefully earn extra money, which makes it possible to go on vacation, to buy something that we really need, to save more, to also save money. That's like the third thing I'm doing, to invest money, because we do not know about retirement funds and everything, and to make the best out of the current situation. So financial minimalism, I think, can look very different for different people. It can mean working a regular job and saving everything. It can mean not working at all and somehow sourcing stuff without money. It can mean working part-time. It can mean saving up for something that's important to you. It can mean just limiting your spending, whatever makes the most sense to you. But I hope this kind of gave you an overview over my financial situation and how I try to be happy with what I have, but also create the income and the money I need to actually live this life, and in the end to hopefully not think about money that much, because after all, money is really not my top priority and I don't want it to be. So I want to keep focusing on my time, on my friends, on my family, on my different values, and on living life. Thank you so much for watching. I will link you a video here that I hope you'll check out. And I also do want to say thank you to all of my patrons who will get extra access to like a podcast. And I also do want to say thank you if you have just watched this video until now, because that also really helps me out. I do hope to see you there or in my next video. Goodbye.